Love versus attachment. Do Jesus and the Buddha teach the same thing about love? What if what most people call love is not love at all? What if, in many cases, what we cherish most does not arise from pure love, but from attachment wearing a beautiful disguise? We speak the word love with tenderness, but underneath it, there may be fear everywhere. Fear of loss, fear of being replaced, fear of becoming unimportant, fear that no one will confirm that our life still matters. And when those fears settle inside a relationship, what we call love begins to change form. From goodwill into control, from care into possession, from companionship into the urge to keep the other person from changing. This is not a small question. It touches the root of human life. We suffer partly because of the outer world, but we also suffer because of what the mind clings to, and often, what it clings to appears in the form of love. This is where the conversation between Jesus and the Buddha becomes deeply interesting, because at first glance, the two religions seem very different. Different language, different culture, different theological structure, different public image. But when we look more deeply, we find one very important shared point. Both are trying to pull human beings out of a life revolving around me. Jesus teaches love for one's neighbor, love even for one's enemies, forgiveness, sacrifice, doing good without seeking recognition, and refusing to answer hatred with hatred. The Buddha teaches loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. He teaches the understanding of suffering and the cause of suffering. And he points, with striking precision, to this. The clinging that says, "This is me. This is mine. This is myself," is the fuel of suffering itself. At first, this sounds very close. And at one level, it is. Especially at the ethical level. Especially in the purification of the heart. Especially in the effort to reduce selfishness, harshness, and the craving to defeat one another. But if we want to be honest, we must also say this clearly. That closeness has limits. These two religions share a deep ethical common ground, but they do not present the same ultimate goal. And if we do not distinguish those two layers, everything becomes blurred. The first layer is where the two traditions can walk together. The second is where they separate in a meaningful way. Let us begin with love, because this is the door every human being understands. And it is also the door that leads into a much deeper question than romance, emotion, or relationships. In Christianity, love has an extremely high place, not merely as a pleasant feeling, but as the movement beyond the narrowness of self. Love God. Love your neighbor. Love even your enemy. Forgive those who hurt you. Sacrifice even when it costs you. This is a powerful teaching, because it strikes directly at the ego. The ego does not want to love its enemy. The ego does not want to forgive. The ego does not want to sacrifice. The ego wants revenge. It wants to win. It wants to be seen. It wants to be acknowledged as the good side. So when Jesus teaches this kind of love, he is not merely teaching morality. He is weakening the self that wants to remain at the center. Then we come to the Buddha's teaching. In the framework of the Buddha's direct teaching, the starting point is different. He does not begin simply with love. He begins with the structure of suffering itself. There is suffering. There is a cause of suffering. That cause is craving. Craving gives rise to clinging. Clinging gives rise to becoming. Becoming gives rise to birth. And where there is birth, there follow aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. This is what makes the Buddha's teaching so sharp. Because in Buddhism, The central human problem is not described merely as selfishness in a moral sense. It is described more deeply as ignorance, craving, and clinging. And that clinging is the machinery that keeps producing suffering without end. So if we want to say it as accurately as possible, Jesus and the Buddha share this much. Neither leaves human beings under the domination of self-centered living. But the Buddha goes beyond moral reduction of selfishness. He points to the fact that even what we love most should not be grasped as me, mine, or myself. So perhaps the sharpest way to put it is this. Jesus asks, "Have you loved enough?" The Buddha asks, "Are you still clinging?" And this is where it becomes painfully real. Because many people do not love with purity. They love with need. We love because we want someone to confirm that we matter. We love because we do not want to be alone. We love because we want something to hold on to. We love because we want someone to help support our identity. We say, "I love this person." But sometimes, what is really hidden inside is, "I need this person." And the stronger that need becomes, the stronger suffering becomes with it. We fear that they will change. We fear that they will leave. We fear that they will not love us back. We fear that they will not give us the place we thought we had. We fear that if they change, our whole inner balance will collapse. So the question is, does this suffering come from pure love? Or does it come from turning another person into a support structure for the ego? This is where the Buddha's teaching is so deep. He does not reject relationships. He does not teach coldness. He does not teach emotional shutdown. But he warns that whenever the mind clings, suffering is ready to arise. So loving kindness in Buddhism is not indifference. And it is not withdrawal from people. It is goodwill without possession. Care without swallowing the other into the self. Relationship without turning another person into emotional property. To say it plainly, in Buddhism, you may love, but you do not need to cling. You may care, but you do not need to possess. You may be deeply connected, but you do not need to build your identity out of that connection. This sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest things in human life. Because many people do not merely want to love. They want to have. They want someone to belong to them. They want a space that feels secure. They want a life that proves they are not empty or insignificant. And when we do not see this desire clearly, we call all of it love. When the person we love does not respond the way we hoped, we say we are hurt because we love. But deeper down, the ego may be trembling. When the person we love grows in another direction, we say we are hurt because we care. But deeper down, something we secretly regarded as mine is slipping away. When someone we invested in does not value us as we expected, we say the depth of love explains the depth of pain. But deeper down, the mind may have been keeping accounts all along. And once we see this, we begin to understand why the Buddha does not stop at love one another. He points to the ending of craving and the loosening of clinging. This is exactly where the two traditions become fascinating together. Christianity emphasizes, do not live for yourself. Buddhism emphasizes, do not cling to anything as yourself. Christianity urges the heart to open. Buddhism urges wisdom to see through. Christianity emphasizes sacrifice. Buddhism emphasizes non-attachment. And perhaps modern people need both dimensions. Because the modern world has made many people incapable of real love, while making them highly skilled at attachment. Some shut down so much that they become emotionally cold. Some open their hearts without wisdom, and love becomes a prison. Some seek relationships as if they were looking for medicine for inner emptiness. And when the medicine fails, they blame the other person, even though the deeper problem was already in the mind. So from here, we must move to another question. If both religions teach goodness, forgiveness, and the reduction of ego, then what is the purpose of goodness? This is where the comparison becomes deeper. Both Jesus and the Buddha affirm goodness. Neither allows human beings to remain under crude impulses. Both warn against hatred, revenge, self-delusion, and the urge to harm. Christianity teaches service, helping others, forgiveness, love without self-display, goodness without performance. Buddhism teaches refraining from evil, cultivating wholesome action, purifying the mind, non-retaliation, guarding body, speech, and mind, and reducing greed, hatred, and delusion. This is a beautiful ethical common ground. And if we want to speak with the greatest fairness, this is one of the places where the two traditions truly walk side by side. Thinkers like Buddhadasa clearly saw this point. He did not compare religions in order to divide them. He compared them to pull people out of a certain kind of ignorance, the idea that different language must mean mutual hostility. He tried to see through the outer shell. He saw that words and methods may differ, but in the realm of reducing ego, ending revenge, doing good without self-inflation, and purifying the mind, many teachings of Jesus are remarkably deep. Take, for example, the teaching about doing good without showing off. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Read through a Buddhist lens. This is goodness without constructing a bigger door inside the mind. And that is more important than most people realize. Because human beings do not suffer only when they do evil. They can also suffer while doing good. If they use goodness to build a new identity, we help someone and want to be remembered for it. We make merit and want to be seen making merit. We forgive, but still secretly want the other person to feel guilty for a long time. We sacrifice, but inwardly expect the world to repay our goodness in a fair and visible way. Human beings have a peculiar talent. We can feed the ego with goodness itself. The ego does not only live in crude things. It is not found only in greed, anger, or conflict. It can dress politely, speak gently, do charitable acts, talk about compassion, and still whisper inside, "Look how much better I am than everyone else." This is why both Christianity and Buddhism do not stop at outward behavior. They go to intention. They go to the heart. They go to the force behind speech and action. In Christianity, wrongdoing is not measured only by outer acts, but by inner intention. In Buddhism too, karma includes not only bodily and verbal action, but mental action. This is another place where the two traditions are deep in a similar way. They are not impressed by appearance, not impressed by religious image, not impressed by moral costume. They ask, what is your heart actually doing? You may look calm, but inwardly be full of comparison. You may look virtuous, but inwardly be attached to the image of being virtuous. You may speak of forgiveness, but inwardly still hunger for gratitude and moral superiority. And when we speak of forgiveness, the overlap becomes even more powerful. Jesus teaches love for enemies, non-retaliation, the refusal to answer injury with injury. The Buddha says, hatred is never ended by hatred. Hatred is ended only by non-hatred. That is not a beautiful slogan. It is the mechanism of the mind. The more the ego answers, the longer suffering continues. The more rigidly we defend the self, the more the world becomes full of things that can wound us. So at the level of refining the heart, these two religions truly can walk together. But if we are to be honest with the full truth, we must add one more sentence. Even if they walk together in ethics, they do not end at the same place. This is the most important dividing line in the whole discussion. Both traditions affirm goodness, but the structure of goodness is not identical. In Christianity, goodness is bound up with love for God, with righteousness, and with salvation. Goodness is not merely social decency. It is part of living in accord with spiritual truth under God. In Buddhism, goodness is also essential. Good actions bear good results. Wholesome actions lead to favorable rebirth. This is clear. But the Buddha does not stop there. He does not only ask, "Have you done enough good?" He asks further, "Are you still attached to that goodness? Do you still crave its results? Are you still generating becoming through that craving?" This is where Buddhism becomes exceptionally deep. Because in Buddhism, goodness is not merely for producing good outcomes. It is for purifying the mind, for preparing it to see clearly, for weakening craving, for loosening clinging, and ultimately for freedom from the whole structure of suffering. If goodness is still clung to, it can still become food for the ego. Some people do much good, but are attached to their goodness. Some keep strict morality, but are attached to the image of being moral. Some meditate intensely, but do so in order to make the ego appear more peaceful and profound. This is why Buddhism does not stop at being a good person. Because being good is not yet the same as being liberated from suffering. If there is still someone clinging to that goodness. And this is exactly where we must speak about heaven. Buddhism does not deny heaven. It acknowledges favorable rebirth, higher realms, the fruit of merit, and refined states beyond the human world. But the Buddha does not set heaven up as the highest goal. Why? Because heaven is still within Sasra. It still arises through conditions. It is still impermanent. It is still a realm of becoming. And wherever there is becoming, there is still the structure of decline. This is the sharpness of Buddhism. The Buddha does not merely lead people out of what is low. He leads beyond the need to revolve within all realms of becoming. So, in the simplest possible form, in Christianity, heaven is the arrival at the goal. In Buddhism, heaven is still part of what must be transcended. This is not a statement of superiority. It is simply a necessary distinction. Without it, Buddhism gets reduced to a religion of moral goodness, when in fact it goes much further than that. Buddhism does not stop at favorable rebirth. It does not stop at merit. It does not stop at a more refined happiness. It goes to nirvana. And nirvana is not an upgraded heaven, not a more luxurious spiritual realm, not simply a subtler, calmer, more beautiful plane. Nirvana is the ending of craving, the exhaustion of clinging, freedom from the compulsion to generate another state of becoming in order to taste something again. If we want to say it in the sharpest way, heaven is still where the self wants to go. Nirvana is where the clinging to self has come to an end. That is why Buddhism does not stop at heaven. Because the Buddha is not merely looking for a higher pleasure. He is pointing to freedom from the necessity of grasping at anything at all. And once we reach this point, the whole picture becomes far clearer. Jesus and the Buddha truly do share a deep common ground. Both strike at selfishness. Both elevate compassion, forgiveness, goodness, non-retaliation, and freedom from obsession with appearances. That is the field of real cooperation. The field that allows human beings to speak to one another without turning religion into war. But at the same time, Jesus and the Buddha do not offer the same final answer. Christianity, in general, places salvation and life with God at the highest point. The Buddha's direct teaching places nirvana, the ending of craving and clinging, at the highest point. And within that framework, even heaven is not final. So if we want the shortest and clearest summary, the common ground lies in the reduction of self-centeredness. The difference lies in the final meaning of liberation. Christianity speaks the language of salvation. Buddhism speaks the language of liberation. Christianity speaks the language of love and return. Buddhism speaks the language of the Four Noble Truths, the ending of craving, and nirvana. Christianity urges you to love. Buddhism urges you to see. Christianity warns, do not hate. Buddhism warns, do not cling. And for people in this age, the greatest value of this comparison is not deciding who wins. It is turning back to examine ourselves. What kind of love are we living? Love as goodwill, or love as possession? What kind of goodness are we practicing? Goodness for purification, or goodness for self-construction? What kind of forgiveness do we offer? Forgiveness that ends the transmission of poison, or only a more polite form of resentment? What kind of religion are we practicing? To refine the ego, or to decorate the ego so that it appears sacred? Because this is the deepest trap of all. Human beings can cling to wealth, relationships, opinions, morality, religion, and even the image of being spiritually awake. We can use even the sacred as food for the ego. And if we do not see that, then no matter how beautifully we speak of God, Dharma, compassion, or love, the heart may still remain unchanged. So if the whole matter must be gathered into a single sentence, perhaps the fairest and sharpest sentence would be this: Jesus teaches human beings to love until the self is no longer the center. The Buddha teaches human beings to see until nothing remains worth clinging to as the center. Those two sentences are not the same, but both can make human beings gentler, humbler, and more truthful, if we hear them honestly. Tonight, before sleep, ask yourself quietly, does what you call love make your heart lighter or heavier? Does what you call goodness make your heart cleaner, or only make your identity look higher? And does what you call religion lead you out of clinging, or merely help you cling in a more elegant form? Perhaps those questions matter more than arguing about which religion is most correct. Because in the end, true religion should not make us more attached to ourselves. It should make us willing to lay down, layer by layer, what is false within us, until the heart becomes light enough to love without possessing, to do good without displaying, to forgive without storing poison, and to face life without demanding that everything obey our desires. When that begins to happen, whether one starts from the language of love or from the language of non-attachment, at least one is truly beginning to walk out of the prison of self. And that may be the beginning of understanding both Jesus and the Buddha more deeply than any argument ever could.